All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA DFS live stream. Going to be touching on this Wednesday slate. We do have a lot of injury news to get into, so we'll start with that. So having it pulled up right now, we know LeBron's going to be out. That hasn't really changed, but we do have a lot of injury news on the Spurs. And so I think that kind of be a starting point that we want to look at. And so we'll start with the Spurs. And looking at Zach Collins still feels like way too cheap. I don't really get the pricing here. And look at his ownership; it's only 7%. I don't really get what's going on there, especially if we get news that Keldon Johnson is going to sit potentially. He is a game time decision, and so to me, that'd just be a really easy plug and play for Zach Collins at that price tag. And so I'll pull it up here on DraftKings just so we can get a better view of it. Yes, he's going against Milwaukee. That's going to be the worry, right? That is a big worry, I would say. But he's just been so consistent. I mean, it's like a 20-point spread. So there is some worry about the blowout potential. We get that, but hasn't really mattered too much. Maybe he gets 27 minutes instead of 30. He could potentially get into foul trouble as well. That could be an issue. And I think because of that, we are going to want some of Sandro as well, just simply given the fact that there's a little bit of the revenge game narrative. So last game was a blowout, and it was kind of strange. He randomly got pulled at the end of the first half. The minutes weren't exactly there. I don't really know why, but he went off, okay? And you got the revenge game narrative if you want. You got the potential for Zach Collins to get into foul trouble. Then you also have the game being a blowout. I think we can accurately project Sandro to get at least 25 minutes in this one. And if he is going to get 25 minutes, I think it's pretty easy to see him being able to 5X and also being able to 7X tonight as well. Obviously 7X more GPP projection there, but yeah, I think he's going to be one of the better players that we get tonight. Not really popping up right now on the OF index, but I think he's going to be someone that we're going to be looking at. And then Jeremy Sochan, currently a game time decision. We got to see if he's going to play. Keldon Johnson, currently a game time decision as well. We do know that Trey Jones is out, and then Devin Vassell, he is active. He's going to play. So we could potentially have some guard value here. We have Blake only projected to get about 12 minutes. So we're probably not looking at him. So let's just look at these guards real quick for the Spurs. And honestly, we never like to really prepare for a blowout or anything like that. But today, it kind of seems like we should be doing that. So we got Branham, who, he's been getting his minutes, hasn't been as productive as he was kind of for a good 2-week stretch that he had in there. But I could see us potentially rolling with Blake Wesley here, because if he gets around 25 minutes at 3.9, it doesn't really take much for him to get there. And so if this game's a blowout, I could see him, possibly getting some extended run that, we normally wouldn't see. Now, if this game stays close, it's going to be because Devin Vassell had a great game. And then it's also going to be because some of these other guys show up. Now, Keldon Johnson's way too priced up. Jeremy Sochan, we could play in a GPP. Probably not something that I like, but let's see his ownership here. Yeah, no one's going to be rostering him. And he is a game time decision. Got to see if he's active. But he'd be an interesting play. But I think the two best plays here are still going to be the centers for the Spurs. And then just kind of moving on into some other kind of injury situations that we have. We know DeJounte Murray is going to be out. Okay, and then Bogdanovich is currently a game time decision as well. So let's take a look at the Atlanta Hawks. And so looking at Trae Young. Yeah, Trae Young is going to be pulling in a lot of ownership simply because he's a very logical play. And so the question would be, are we trying to fade Trae Young at all? Even on FanDuel, it's not too crazy. And if we look at his per 36 numbers with DeJounte Murray off the court, he by far has the most minutes for one. Averages 32.1 points, 3 rebounds, 11, almost 12 assists. A usage rate of 39.3% and 52.8 fantasy points per 36. That's about a 9% bump in usage and about 9 more fantasy points per 36 with DeJounte Murray off the court. He is kind of the clear-cut pay-up play, especially in this matchup against Minnesota, especially against Mike Conley defense. That is highly intriguing. So I would say this ownership is right. Maybe if he gets to 40%, which it won't, it's a Big 10 game slate. I don't think we have to worry about that. I think 30% is correct, and I think we maybe be overweight by like 5%. Because I would say the chances of him going off are pretty strong. And so, yeah, on DraftKings, it seems like an easy plug and play. Like he should be able to go for 55 or so. Once again, he averages about 53 fantasy points per 36 with Murray off the court. And in a better matchup, you kind of expect him to be able to get a little bit more points. So to me, that's going to be a very appealing play. Now, who else could we potentially be looking at? Well, the next player that gets more minutes with him off the court is actually AJ Griffin. I don't think we'd be looking at him. I'm actually very curious with Bogdanovich here. He is pulling in a lot of ownership as well, because ceiling-wise, he's probably the next best in terms of his ceiling. And so it makes sense why people would want to chase that potential ceiling. But can we trust it? Probably not. And if he's going to be extreme chalk, and this isn't extreme chalk, but on a 10-game slate, it kind of is. And so I could see potentially fading him. And if we're fading him, we'd probably go Hunter instead. Don't exactly love that. And maybe we just go Trae Young. I'll pull up Hunter here. Like, probably rather go DeAndre Hunter, but I don't think we're going to get 6x out of him. And I think that's why people are defaulting to Bogdanovich, just because the simple fact that there is the upside to go for 6x. Then AJ Griffin as well. If he does get maybe an extra rotation tonight, once again, he does get the second most minutes with Murray off the court this season. Who knows what's going into that sample, if it's a blowout or something like that, but he is an interesting play. We have seen the point per minute production recently. So if he gets 25 minutes tonight, and we don't have him projected that, we have him projected to get what he has been getting, but if he does get an extra rotation, would be an interesting value price point play, especially in a matchup against Minnesota. So that takes care of Atlanta. What's interesting tonight is that Karl Anthony Towns is back for Minnesota. And this is like the most healthy they have been in quite some time. And then just looking at some other injury situations, we do have to see the news on Bradley Beal. He is currently questionable. If he sits, that's going to mean Monte Morris is looking like a great play. We do know that Kyle Kuzma is out as well. So Washington could have a lot of value that opens up. And I'm going to pull them up here real quick because I want to see that game over and under. All right, so line is about +8. That's not terrible. Okay. Porzingis, not too bad. But yeah, a lot of people are already going with Monte Morris. I believe he had a good night last night. Let me just pull that up. And so people are probably chasing that production. Let's see. Yeah, people like that. So he's not a terrible play, don't get me wrong. And he would be a much, much better play if we get news that Beal is sitting. Then Gafford as well. He might be an interesting play as well. But if Beal's out, then this game just becomes blowout risk, and I don't really see anyone that would really want to go out of our way to target with Washington then. Then continuing on, Luka is expected to play tonight for Dallas. Kyrie is a game-time decision, so we kind of have to wait and see on that news. Tyrese Halliburton is currently a game-time decision. Let's see if we have him projected to get minutes or not. Okay, we do. And this is just a wait-and-see approach, okay? Probably wouldn't be on him at all. Anyways, at 9.5, that does feel a little bit too high. Now, if he sits, I think we would just be rolling with Benedict Mathurin. His price tag does seem too cheap. Mathurin was someone that I was very interested in the last game, with all the Pacers kind of banged up. Durante and Halliburton out. Got 30 minutes. That was huge. Was productive, 7 for 10. Obviously, we don't like that in terms of he came off a really good night shooting and he only scored 25 DK points, and the price tag is a little bit higher now. And I wonder how many more minutes he got, because maybe someone like Aaron Naismith got into foul trouble. Okay, so he could be someone that we're looking at as well if we get news that Halliburton's out, because he will be starting. And we did see him have like 3 straight really good games in a row prior to him having a terrible game against Charlotte, and honestly a disappointing game against Charlotte because he was in foul trouble the whole game. So let's see the ownership on him. Nothing. So that could be a strong kind of ownership leverage situation for the Pacers. If we get that news that Halliburton's out, they would shift to a smaller unit. And that'd just be an interesting play right there. But no real locks there. And then also looking at Toronto, Scotty Barnes currently questionable. And then you also have Precious currently questionable. Gary Trent Jr., game time decision. And so there are some injuries that we're looking for here. I will say Jakob Poeltl, he's at a fine price tag. He's at a safe price tag as well. Going against Indy, this could be a good matchup for him. If you guys do any of the props boards at all, I saw that Jakob Poeltl's fantasy projection on PrizePicks was 37, which is pretty high for them. So that should kind of give us a good indication of the quality of play that he is. And then Pascal Siakam has just been going off. This is way too low of a price tag for that recent production. Why has Jakob Poeltl kind of fallen off the last 2 games? Because Pascal Siakam has gone off. It does almost feel like we could be locking in around 6.5x by playing Siakam or Jakob Poeltl. And to me, that's a little bit intriguing. Obviously, the matchup's pretty strong. And then continuing down this list, Philly, James Harden currently a game time decision. We don't know anything about that just yet. Looking at Milwaukee, nothing too crazy with them. We already touched on the Spurs, Atlanta. I think the biggest one we need to touch on is going to be Portland. So I'm assuming that we're going to be going out of our way to pay up for Damian Lillard. Really not too high of a price tag for him at all. Okay. I expect him to put up 57 DK points with both Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons off the court. That is huge. Damian Lillard has been extremely productive in those scenarios as well. It just makes sense to try to go out of our way to pay up for Lillard tonight. And just a reminder, if you guys have any questions in the chat, put those in there and I'll get to those at the end of this segment here. So I'm trying to pull up his per 36 numbers real quick with those 2 off the court because they're appealing. I mean, it's all right. I have pulled up 40% usage rate for Lillard with those 2 off the court. 59.5 fantasy points per 36 with those 2 off the court. And we can see he's actually been getting a little bit more run than that lately. Just would be a stellar play. And then we look at the minutes. Watford could be someone interesting that we're looking at. And let's just pull them up here on the model. Lillard is chalk. He should be chalk. And then Watford is actually pretty chalky as well. Cam Reddish pretty chalky. It makes sense why all these players are chalk because it's an appealing game for one, soft defense, and you kind of just expect them to go off. So the question would be, who else are we trying to play from Portland? Is it Cam Reddish? Cam Reddish is going to get out there and shoot. We know that. He could be an okay GPP play. It's a strong price tag. But if he's going to be extreme chalk, I'm not saying we fade him. I would say probably be under the weight on him. Feels like that'd be the correct move. But if we do that, who would we favor? Would it be Sharp? And how much upside does he have? Can he give us 20 DK points? He does have the most minutes with Grant and Simons off the court. You look at his per 36 numbers, it's about 28 fantasy points per 36. So let's see the minutes that we have for him. 24. Yeah, it's about the same. Not a terrible play, though. It's really going to be coming down to the bigs, it seems like. So let's take a peek at those bigs. I'm looking at the projected starting lineup for them. It's Thibault at small forward, which is fine. He's an okay value as well. And then it's Watford at power forward, which is funny because he's a center. I think he's going to be the play that everyone goes with. Not a terrible play. As long as the minutes are there. Minutes weren't there in the last game. Only 17 in that game. If he gets 34, pretty strong price point play there. Projected to get 34 minutes. Ownership, yeah, it's a little high. Not terrible, though. Definitely someone I think we could play. And then on the flip side of that game, we have the Utah Jazz. And the Utah Jazz, they're pretty interesting tonight as well, because we know they're going to be without Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson. Horton Tucker was an extreme disappointment in the last game with those two off the court. He seemed like he should be a really good play, and he just wasn't. It was actually Chris Dunn getting 30 minutes in that game and really going off. I would say GPP-wise, we could still probably be on Chris Dunn. He's not going to be pulling in that much ownership. No one's going to want to play him at this price tag. I would say GPP-wise, we being on in 5%, 7%, I don't think that's a mistake because we do know that upside is there. Okay? Not a terrible play. But definitely not someone you're like making your builds around. And then Horton Tucker as well. Just a terrible game, and it was bad right away. 5 personal fouls, 4 turnovers, just bad, okay? 3 for 9, didn't really shoot the basketball that much. Like, on paper, it looked like a great spot for him. Now no one's going to roster him, and I could see him putting up 40 DraftKings points at a low ownership tonight. Lauri Markkanen's going to be active tonight as well. That should help him, kind of opens up the court a little bit. I actually think Horton Tucker is a very good leverage play tonight. Just given the fact that we're going to see him, operate at the point guard. As long as he doesn't get into foul trouble, should be a decent play. And because he got into foul trouble, we did see some other players kind of step up into a better spot. Now they're all kind of priced up though. Okay, so I don't think we can play any of those other Utah players now, especially with Markkanen back as well. They're just all kind of priced up now. So yeah, especially if we're going to go in on Damian Lillard and potentially another Portland Trailblazer, I kind of feel like we have to play someone like Horton Tucker, a low-owned play. And then lastly, looking at the Phoenix Suns. We know that Phoenix is going to be without Ayton and obviously KD. So that should open up some pretty strong plays. And then, looking at Devin Booker and Chris Paul are not really pulling in that much ownership, which to me is a little bit strange. Just given the fact that obviously they're going to be without DeAndre Ayton. But if we look at the samples with Ayton off the court, but also Mikal Bridges off the court, they are pretty productive. And so to me, it's kind of a decent spot for both of them at low ownerships. Like Devin Booker averages 52 fantasy points per 36. With Ayton and Mikal Bridges off the court. If we could pull in, I guess, KD into that sample as well. There's only about 30 minutes for KD in that, but we could do that as well. And it's about the same then. 35% usage rate, which is crazy. And it makes for a strong pivot off of a very chalky, more expensive Damian Lillard, or potentially Trae Young, who's also very chalky as well. Maybe we could potentially play both of them or all 3 of them. I actually don't mind that. This could very much be a slate in which we're paying up 4 3 guards, and then we'd have to really go studs and duds. Do not have a good average salary remaining then. Probably could not play Sandro in the revenge game narrative. I think he's going to be a strong price point play tonight as well. So I bet when we sort by the OF index, we're going to see that those 3 players are probably going to be the top 3 plays. But is there anyone else that we could look at on Phoenix? I wish Cam Payne was getting more minutes. If he was getting 20 or so minutes consistently, this would be an elite price point play. And we have seen him get 20 randomly, and we have seen him be a point per minute player. His production goes up a lot with these 2 off the court. With those players off the court, Ayton, Bridges, Durant. Just not that many minutes going into the sample size, but price point wise right now, he is looking like a pretty decent value play, and I'm sure he's not going to be coming in high owned. 0%. And so if we have him at this 15 minutes, terrible play. Okay. He needs to get around 20. And I'm hoping that just because of, Ayton being out, maybe they shift to a slightly smaller unit. We'll see. And then looking at, let's see, Torrey Craig, he's okay. More of a, my shoulder shrug play. Not exactly someone you're going out of your way to play. And then for the big, we just have to figure out which one's going to be starting. Biyombo is currently projected to start. Thus, I believe he's getting more minutes. Yeah, so kind of just depends on which one's starting. Neither of them are locks. They're only okay plays. But that is kind of it for the injury situations. Let's see if we have any questions. And then I want to touch on basically the model, who it likes. So let's see. Oh, Austin Reeves. Okay. So yeah, let's take a peek on Austin Reeves. So he's been really strange. Let's just put it that way. He feels too priced up now to me. But he has been playing extremely well lately. I don't know. It's just like Russell hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been great. AD, I kind of expect AD to have a really good game tonight. And like his massive games just haven't been there. So I would say I do really like AD as a play, but we already saw like 3 of the really good guard plays are probably the way to go tonight. So getting into Austin Reeves over AD actually kind of makes sense in the sense that we're already paying up for 3 different studs. And so if we're fading Anthony Davis, well, that and the game stays close, well, it's probably going to be because maybe Russell's going off and then maybe Reeves is going off. He definitely feels too priced up. And let's just pull this up here. The Lakers. I just want to see how he's looking. You know, not a terrible value. Not a terrible OF index rating. None of them are pulling ownership, though, because they're all basically properly priced. Any Bucks guys that the Spurs guys play tonight? Milwaukee's difficult. Like, yeah, you could obviously play them. If the game's going to be a massive blowout like they're projecting it to be, then it's going to be because someone like Giannis gets there in the first half. Brook Lopez could get there in the first half. Like, they're all priced up, though. Like, Chris Middleton, I would say, actually is probably still a little bit too cheap. Chris Middleton has 40-point upside, DraftKings point upside, FanDuel point upside. And so his price still seems a little bit too low. Okay, he could be in a GPP winning lineup. But other than that, probably not. Like, the rotation's already kind of deep as it is. I don't really see someone else getting like random minutes. And just off the top of my head, I don't even know if like Marjon Beauchamp, is he up with the team right now? I would assume so. Like, even if he gets garbage time minutes, how many is that going to be? Like 16? Probably not enough to do anything. Maybe Bobby Portis gets a little bit extra run tonight. 25 minutes. Could go off for 30, but he's priced up enough as well. So I feel like if we are paying up for a Bucks player, it's probably just Giannis. Like, he could probably get a triple-double tonight like he had last game. It's kind of a fun MVP battle between Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid. If he gets another triple-double, that would only help up that narrative for him. So, yeah, we're probably not playing them. I mean, maybe Javon Carter we could roll with. Maybe he gets a little bit extra run. That's who I'd be looking at for the Bucks, is someone that's a value like that, but not really going on my way at all to play any of them. So now I just want to go ahead and sort by OF index, see which players are popping up the most. No surprise, we got Lillard popping up there as the best play. And then what is a little bit surprising, where is Trae Young? That's very interesting to me. So just looking at this, guys, we see that Lillard's a great play, and then we see that Ja Morant. That's interesting. We don't know exactly how many minutes Ja Morant's going to get at 28 minutes. He's still one of the better values. That is extremely interesting. But let's look at this. Like, the model likes Booker a little bit more, and Booker is coming in at 6% and 9% on FanDuel, whereas Trae Young is coming in at 29 and 14. To me, looking at that, it's like, all right, we need to prioritize Booker over Trae Young. Obviously, we don't care. Like, we don't mind getting to Trae Young at all. Like, that is fine. Like, he is a great play. But I think if we prioritize getting to Booker over Trae Young, we can really gain some leverage on the field. And to me, that does seem like the correct move. Rudy Gobert still popping up as a decent price point play. We'll have to see just how many, like, we saw him suck with Karl Anthony Towns. So that's very interesting to me that he's popping up. We still have Mike Conley popping up at 6.4. I really don't mind that play. He's like a really strong standout price point play. Could definitely end up on Mike Conley. I don't think his role is going to change too much. And then any other plays popping up there, not too much. So Mike Conley really popping up as a strong price point play, ownership play. And then just sorting by FanDuel value here real quick. Yeah, Mike Conley popping up there. And what's interesting is that Mike Conley popping up as the best FanDuel value that we're getting. Only 13% projected ownership. That's a pretty good thing right there. And then we got Watford for Portland. Do we have to play him? I would say his ownership on DraftKings is probably right. If he's going to be 47% on FanDuel, I don't know. That's tough. That's tough to get to. Then just looking at some other players. Nothing too crazy. I want to see the chalk on FanDuel. Okay, so Matthias. Yeah, that's fine. I think he's a better play on DraftKings, but that makes sense. Cam Reddish. That's fine. That's crazy. So, like, literally the top 3 most chalk plays, I think it's just because the injury news came out the soonest. That'll probably change throughout the night. If you guys are a part of the Discord chat, just be asking that before lock, because that's interesting. Or obviously, if you guys are Occupy Fantasy members, take a look at this, because if they're all still chalky, that means we're going to get some really strong. It's a 10-game slate. Like, we're going to get some better value, especially considering the price. We're going to get better value on the site. So that's something we want to be monitoring before lock, because I don't see this holding up, but if it does, like, there's going to be better pivots. Xavier Tillman. That's not terrible going against Houston. I don't mind that. But nothing too crazy. Let's go and sort by DK per ownership percent. Much more spread out, as it should be. Okay. David. Let's pull this one up. Why is he pulling in there from Memphis? Randomly got some minutes lately. And I don't get that. Just the best value filler that we have currently, probably. So, like, dummy builds, people are putting him in there, I'm assuming. John Concher, he's actually not terrible. Unless I missed some news. No. Dylan Brooks is out. And so that would make sense for John Concher to get some run. Actually, as it sits right now, he's probably one of the better values. Let's go ahead and put him into this build, because obviously I'm trying to do a studs and duds build. That would open up a lot. And so we only need him to get to like 18 or so. And then, yeah, so let's just sort by DraftKings value here real quick. And then we'll be getting pretty much out of here pretty soon. Finishing up this build. If you guys have any questions, make sure to get those in. Yeah, Mike Conley, I do like at that price tag. And at that ownership. Kyle Anderson, that's... Man, if Towns is... How many minutes is Towns projected to get? Let's see. 7. Towns does get around 27, 28 minutes. I think Kyle Anderson, I don't think we can play. Cam Reddish, I really do. Man. That's Mitchell Robinson. I might eat the chalk on DraftKings for Cam Reddish, because I do think he gives us GPP winning upside. I do want to call out Jaren Jackson Jr. He has been on a tear, and we have been getting some like kind of mixed reports on Ja Morant. And so I don't really see the production dropping off massively for Jaren Jackson Jr. And like even with Ja active, it's not like he's a bad play either way. Gets a great matchup tonight against Houston. Okay, I could see Jaren Jackson Jr. going for 48, potentially 50 DraftKings points. Now, the downside's still there. He has had some, pretty lackluster performances randomly, but I think price point wise, he does make a lot of sense as well. So once again, let's just sort by the OF index real quick. Any players that I'm missing that should be in this build? And actually, let's just do this. Like, who's the best sub 5K play? Jaden McDaniels. Okay. Then we do have the Utah value there. I guess we could roll with that potentially. Cam Reddish popping up there. Let's see what it looks like with one of those two. We'll go Reddish at the power forward. Or all forward, I guess. Oh man, I thought we could fit in a power forward there. Because I don't want to be stuck at this price. Because then we're definitely just guessing this is probably a rebuild at this point. So let's get back into this. Let's go a little bit lower than that. Let's go to like 4K and below. I don't really like this play. Concher. Yeah, we're just not getting great. Thibault, I guess. We'll put him in there. We're still stuck at an awkward price tag for the power forward position. Sente Aldama. Is he going to get 30 minutes? It's okay with Dylan Brooks out, maybe try to get lucky, but then we have two of the Memphis bigs that doesn't really correlate too well. Bay, will he get maybe additional run with Murray out the court? Potentially. Tough to have a like perfect lineup path. We might have to go off of Sandro, who I think is going to be a strong kind of leverage spot. If he gets 28 minutes going against his former team, going against his former team's backups, I think he has the upside to really go off and really break this slate kind of again. Obviously, Zach Collins is in a good spot as well. And then I don't mind Blake West. If this game is going to be an 18-point blowout game, there is some value on the Spurs that we just might not be able to see on paper. But like if we plan for a blowout, maybe Blake Wesley gets 28 minutes tonight, and then he gets 25 DK points. Like, not a terrible play. Yeah, I believe Contra is projected to start right now. So Yusuf on FanDuel, let's see that. All right, so we have him pulled up 7K there. Has a lot of ownership as well, which I think that worries me on FanDuel. It's not a terrible play. You know, if the minutes are there for him, not terrible. Let's look at some other center options on FanDuel. Let's sort by price. So like Jakob Poeltl is right there at half the ownership. Very strong play tonight. I think I'd rather go with him at half the ownership. And then that's probably it. I mean, I don't think he should be that chalky. Zach Collins, sure. Game's a blowout. I don't think he should be 1%. Tillman's pretty chalk. It does seem like people are either going Tillman or Yusuf, which it seems weird. I think Jakob Poeltl it was a very strong pivot there. But that was it for today's live stream. About a 40-minute live stream here for you guys. Just going over the slate. It seems to be somewhat of a straightforward slate. Obviously, a big 10-game slate. Make sure to be checking the Discord chat before lock. Link in the description is below. Also, if you guys want access to this tool, obviously it's updating throughout the day. Heck, it probably updates since I started recording. Okay, that's going to be included in the link in the description below as well. Not included. It's the link's included in the description below. But make sure to check that out. Thanks everyone for watching. Good luck tonight, and let's have a good slate. All right, I'm out.